came charging through a hole in space. We're standing 300 feet below it. We're the Avengers. We can bust arms dealers all the live long day, but that up there, that's the end game. How are you guys planning on beating that?
That up there. Kind of poetic, no? And how do we plan on beating it? That heretofore unseen threat of gaseous anomalies that threatens to change the course of history. When Tony Stark speaks of busting arms dealers all the livelong day, he's speaking of distractions. Things that matter, but will become inconsequential in the end. We are arguably the most intelligent species to have ever walked this planet. We've created languages and music from sounds. We've manipulated our environment to increase our lifespan. And we've created tools which have allowed us to leave the confines of this thin layer of atmosphere protecting our world. And yet, with all our intellect and all our abilities to look beyond the present, we may be the dumbest species to have ever existed on Earth.
The hamster has learned a valuable lesson. Beware the hand of man. Wise guy, eh? Ow! Ow!
Never before has a species been able to look into the future and knowingly put its kind in danger of extinction for the sake of something that doesn't exist in the natural world. Money. Like the monkey who refuses to let go of the prize within the gorge to free himself, we refuse to free ourselves from the concept that bigger is better and anything less than more is a failure to progress. Then what is life all about if not progression and growth? Obviously, the answer is subjective. But simply put, the purpose of life is to stay alive. Progressing and staying alive, however, are not mutually exclusive. As the saying goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But we sure try. We have altered the natural world to suit our desires, and that's okay. The problem is, the benefits from human-created environments are not thought out long-term, nor are these benefits distributed in an equitable manner. The majority of humanity seems not to care, or perhaps it's better said, the majority do not have enough surplus to get involved. When faced with the threats of everyday life, the tragic effects you are told about climate change are still not real enough to move you into a full-time action. It's not a priority. But we have the conference of the parties, right? Surely world leaders, given an overwhelming amount of evidence of impending danger, would move into action. I wouldn't count on it. In fact, if I were attending the conference and allowed to address the delegates, I would say, Your Excellency, delegates, and honored guests, it is an honor to speak before you here today. I wish to free you of your obligation in trying to do the right thing. You have been entrusted by the people of this planet, and all living things for that matter, to look at the science, to come up with a solution that would allow us, the current residents of this earth, to continue to thrive. From Rio to Kyoto to the Paris Accords, you've given us hope only to have your governments let us down. It's time to admit defeat so we may live our lives. There's no shame in failure. We're a selfish species incapable of fast transitional change. But unlike past crises, we are not in control of the real-time cause and effect here. And as you know, by the time we see the permanent causes of our current and past actions, it will be too late to make the necessary adjustments. My pessimism for the future may surprise you, but I am grateful for the gift of life and the beings I have encountered on my journey through life. The question before us now is, how do we come together as a species to ensure that all of us can live our best life in the light of the predictions? How do we let go of concepts of haves and have-nots? how do we ensure that resource-rich countries also see the benefits of those resources? And how do we welcome the millions of climate refugees into our homelands without judgment? On our present course, stopping catastrophic changes from occurring before 2050 is not realistic. Your efforts were admirable, but realism must now be a part of the agenda. There are tough times ahead, but a paradigm shift must occur if we are to survive. Thank you for your time.
Fight for climate justice, fight for climate justice.
Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse Climate Summit 2023. Realism must be part of the agenda, so it was expressed by John Brooks, our GatherVerse Climate Director. We're happy to be here with all of you today to meet with us at this intersection of emerging technologies and humanity. We come here once again because we think this is an important discussion to have, and so therefore we're having it. We appreciate all of you that take the time away from your families and your work and your responsibilities and things you have to do to be able to once gather with us again for our now 18th event. We've only just gotten started. Sometimes things don't apparently manifest to be of importance until it comes knocking on our doors. These conversations should be happening more frequent and for much more often. Share this with someone. Let someone know today what's happening for these very few small hours that we have. And once they're gone, they're gone. We meet at the intersection of accessibility and education and community development and safety and privacy and wellness and ethics and equity. These are our focuses. Most importantly, we do this together of expression and to amplify voices. I have a few minutes now with John Brooks to be able to spend with us together. Then we have roundtable discussions and other expressions that will feature with you today. Again, we ask that you please share this free platform, this program that evolves and builds in human centricity. Thank you for allowing us to be able to share time with all of you today. We're really excited that everybody is just showing up at GatherVerse.live and in our other social streaming platforms. It's almost emotionally overwhelming to see how many people often come and join us that are broadcasting from offices and living rooms and homes and cars and perhaps on someone else's sofa. May our gather be well. John, we're happy to have you today, sir.
Honored to be with you, Christopher.
What were your thoughts behind Endgame?
Well, I've looked at what we have been doing as a world on the climate crisis, and as I mentioned in the broadcast about Kyoto and the Paris Accords and all the other climate conferences we've had, and the science is clear and the direction is clear, yet we continue not to do anything. And I thought, well, let's just try a different approach. Let's try to slap you in the face and say, okay, I'm cool with it. If you want to go ahead and lead towards the extinction of humanity, I'm fine with it. And maybe that will put people into action. So the beginning clip with the Avengers, I thought was sort of poetic, is why I put that in there, because he talked about this threat up there that we have not been prepared. We haven't prepared ourselves to deal with. So I thought, all right, let me just throw something in there, some pop culture reference that people can sort of relate to, and then lead into my delicate speech to the COP conference.
John, you are a filmmaker, you're a wildlife biologist, you've been doing this for decades, you're an avid vegan, you do so much. From your experience and from your lens, what's the most important thing that we should know today about climate and the condition and the state of this world when it comes to what it is that we're passing on to generations to may become?
We should all realize that about 100 companies produce 75% of the CO2 that's in the atmosphere. We should also know that there's more methane gas stored under the Arctic than there is CO2 in the atmosphere. And once that releases, because of the warming climate, it is sort of game over. So it's up to us to sort of direct how the economy goes through our pocketbook. Because let's face it, we're a nation, we're a world based upon an economic model. And even though we can, as individuals, make significant changes on our own, but together on how we spend our capital, the products we buy, the people we support, says a lot, because people will change once it affects their pocketbook. So we have to be willing to suffer a little to gain a lot.
Do you feel as if people have met this discussion and conversation with apathy more so than they should?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that as well, too, because I just came across a study, and I wrote some notes down on it. It was the Pew Research Trust. They did a poll, a survey of 9,000 people in the United States. And they said that 61 of the people believe that climate change is a real thing and that heat waves and rising sea levels are going to affect people. But 41% of those people thought that their communities wouldn't be affected. So it's a thing that we now acknowledge that's real, and it's probably going to affect someone else, but again, not us, because it's not in our faces. 71 of those people felt that 71% of those people said that they want to fight for climate, but 50% were only willing to really do something. And 50% thought the government should do something, but 25% of those people thought the government probably will not do anything. So the apathy comes in play, where if it's not right in your face, you don't feel like you have to move into action. And again, as I said on the clip, once it's in your face, it is way too late. That's what we need to sort of trick our brains to think the time is now, because it is. Even though you don't see it, it's here, it's real. We need to act now.
To the GatherVerse community, is climate responsibility a thing for you? Is it a reality? I get it. Bills to pay, bucket list to check off. But my goodness gracious, even I've been guilty of neglect and really considering the appreciation of what's really happening around us. And as I stated before, some things don't matter until it comes knocking on our doors. John Brooks, with the last question that we have with you today, what are the next steps in this end game that you foresee?
The next step is we need to make the decision collectively to fight this climate crisis cold turkey. A slow transition, in my opinion, a slow transitional change is not going to work. It's just putting off the inevitable, pushing it back for future generations to deal with. We need to be willing to make that sacrifice on whatever it is we hold dear to make sure this crisis doesn't evert to where the planet warms up to like 2 degrees Celsius. 1.5 is already gone as far as I'm concerned. So 2 degrees is the end game.
My goodness gracious, there's several roads, it seems, how we've gotten here. Thank you for sharing this with us today at this very candid and frank discussion, and for your incredible documentary opening in, and to be able to join us. Mayor Gather, be well.
Thank you. Honored to be here.